way off, but that's as close as I can get with my Western tongue. So we'll talk to Christopher about the explosion of spending that has now happened in the Chinese Premier League, or Chinese Super League rather. You've heard most recently about Jackson Martinez and his big move. I've got that in the news. We'll get some more of those details here coming up. Also on this program, Luke Moore, a regular on Soccer Morning, will join us to talk about the English Premier League because we had a round of games yesterday. We've got a couple of games today. Obviously, the state of the Premier League title race needs to be discussed because, look, still at the top there, Leicester City Football Club, the Foxes leading the way 3 points ahead of everybody, and it remains a stunning turn of events this deep into the Premier League season. So, Christopher Atkins, player representative based in China. Luke Moore from the Football Ramble, talking Premier League. Those are two excellent guests. That means you do not need to change anything. Stay right there. Let's hit the news. We'll get to Christopher Atkins for what should be a very fascinating discussion. Leicester City beats Liverpool 2-0, maintaining their lead in the English Premier League title race. Jamie Vardy with an absolute stunning goal, a goal that Jurgen Klopp said he almost cheered for. That's how good that goal was. Goal of the month there from Jamie Vardy, who continues his scoring ways for Leicester City. Other Premier League results, Arsenal falling flat in a goalless draw with Southampton. City winning away to Sunderland. Manchester United 3-0 over Stoke City, so some good news there for Manchester United. Norwich City losing 0-3 to Spurs at Carrow Road. So you've got, obviously you've got a Premier League race that is, again, very fascinating. 50 points at the top. Leicester City, Manchester City 3 points back. Tottenham and Arsenal tied on 45, with Tottenham holding a goal differential tiebreaker over their North London rivals, and then obviously Manchester United and West Ham, Southampton, Liverpool 6, 7, 8. So it's a fascinating season, and the Premier League continues to be so. Atletico Madrid has sold Colombian striker Jackson Martinez to Guangzhou Evergrande Tauba, I'm not going to even try that, of the Chinese Super League for 45 or 49, depending on the exchange rate that you see, $49 million. $49 million, the transfer fee. Martinez signs a 4-year deal with the club. He scored just 3 goals in 22 appearances for Atleti after making a big money move from Porto last year. Martinez is the latest big money signing by clubs in the Chinese Super League. You've heard about Ramirez. You've heard about Gervinho. You've heard about Freddie Guarin. So this is clearly a trend. There's been a massive investment in the Chinese Super League. We're going to talk to Christopher Atkins about where all this money is coming from and what it means. I have some very pointed questions about what this means for the transfer market around the world if the Chinese are going to come in and spend this much money. And they've invested in other parts of the football world as well, including in France, in Portugal, numerous places. UEFA Secretary General Gianni Infantino gets the backing of Alex Ferguson and Russia ahead of this month's FIFA presidential election. Ferguson says, quote, "In my role as ambassador to UEFA over the last few years, I've gotten to know Gianni very well. I think he's got good professionalism, discipline, organizational ability, and knowledge of the game, and I wish him every success in his quest to be a FIFA president." Infantino is getting momentum in the race against Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa, Prince Ali bin Al Hussein, Jerome Champagne, and Tokyo Sheshwali. That's your group currently running for FIFA president. Again, the vote coming at the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken. It's been so long in the build-up, and we've had the elimination of some of the names, including Michel Platini, that it's been hard to keep up with the race. MLS has ordered Orlando City Soccer Club. They're the ones that do that. They've ordered Orlando City Soccer Club to cease its chase of AC Milan midfielder Antonio Nocerino because DC United holds exclusive MLS discovery rights. Stephen Goff reports that United officials were irate that Orlando had meddled and disrupted negotiations with Nocerino, reporting that several trips to Italy had been made in an attempt to convince Nocerino to join DC United. Orlando got involved. In MLS terms, this is tampering. DC United has not yet filed an official tampering claim, hence no response from MLS publicly. But reports behind the scenes are that DC United is very, very upset. Orlando City and head coach Adrian Heath were fined just last year when Heath commented that he would attempt to sign Sporting Kansas City striker Dom Dwyer, a player who had previously been with Orlando City during their stint in the USL. Orlando City did not seem to have learned their lesson, although we can obviously have a discussion about the rules that dictate who can talk to who when it comes to MLS. Games today in the Premier League, you got Everton hosting Newcastle and Watford hosting Chelsea. Barcelona against Valencia in the Copa del Rey is a pretty big game. I've seen that both Neymar and Messi are expected to be available for that match. Got a whole host of games in Italy, including Lazio hosting Napoli, Palermo hosting AC Milan, Juventus hosting Genoa, Inter against Chievo Verona, Fiorentina and Carpi. A couple of other games there on the schedule in Italy as well. France, also a whole full rack of games, including PSG hosting Lorient, Lyon, Bordeaux, Nice, and Toulouse. A couple of other games there. Copa Libertadores this evening as well. So a whole host of games on a Wednesday, a host of games to talk about from Tuesday. Two very excellent guests today, including Christopher Atkins coming up to talk about the explosion of spending in China, what this means for global football, what it means for the Chinese Super League, the investments that have been made there, the rise of Asian football in general. So many different layers to pull apart when it comes to China. Freddie Montero also making that move for American fans who remember him from the Seattle Sounders. And then Luke Moore from the Football Ramble will join us to talk about the Premier League and all of the intrigue there. There's plenty of it. Man, it's good to be back. Soccerboarding on backheel.com. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, we are back. We're obviously not on World Soccer Talk, but that's okay. It says my name and the name of the show, and that's what you need to know. We're back here on a Wednesday. One of the more stunning developments recently in world football, especially in this transfer window, has been the amount of spending being done by Chinese Super League teams. We heard yesterday about the transfer of Jackson Martinez from Atletico Madrid to Guanzhou Evergrande of China to talk about this Chinese Super League. I don't know what the word is exactly. Revolution. Christopher Atkins, who is based in Guangzhou, joins us now on Soccer Morning. He is a player agent and representative. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. Okay, so before we may deal with some around the world communication issues here, technology wise. Hopefully the connection holds. First of all, I mean, I hate to be blunt about this and simple, but what is happening and why is it happening?
I think that's the question everyone's asking, besides how long it can go on. I mean, generally what you're seeing is a lot of government encouraged investment into football by various parties. They're huge businesses domestically. They're now getting involved in football, and they're putting money into to grow the sport and grow the sports industry in China.
Now I'll come back to the government encouraged part of this, but certainly, China as an economy, China as a force in the world does not need any. We don't need to discuss that or introduce that idea. Clearly, that's just a fact to be dealt with. Why is it taking so long then for China to flex some of the economic muscle on the football scene?
I think most people are generally aware, and certainly those who've been to China are aware that China is still very much a developing country. There's still large swathes of the population who are involved in labor in factories and manufacturing. So they've still got a lot of domestic issues to overcome. So I guess for a long time the focus was on developing that side of thing, and while exports were strong, that was allowing China's economy to grow. Now the economy is obviously slowing down in that respect, with the ability of the U.S. market and also the European market to buy those products diminishing. So China's got to find a way to evolve its economy into a more multifaceted earning power. So one of those ways is entertainment. So the government is currently trying to expand the music business, the film business, and also sports in China. And we see that with the application for the Winter Olympics, which they won. They also hosted the Summer Olympics not long back. And now I think the main focus in terms of an individual sport is on football, as they see that, this is the global game. This is the game where people all around the world spend money to watch, spend money on merchandise. So if China can have its own product in that regard, it will really help the sports economy in China develop.
I want to come to the position of football and sports and entertainment in Chinese culture here in a second. But from the outside, when we see, whether we're like me, based in the United States, and certainly lots of soccer fans here, or the Europeans, the explosion of money, and specifically, let's just take Jackson Martinez for one example. Although there's numerous players who have made a move, is it clear that China is paying a premium here because of the youth of the league and the lack of prestige? Certainly, Jackson Martinez can't make the Champions League of UEFA if he's playing in China, but he's clearly more than willing to take on the adventure for that paycheck.
I think so. I think in terms of salary, definitely that's the case. Players are going to take a lot more financial motivation in order for them to give up the Champions League or give up a top European league to head to China, or even in the case of, say, Brazilian players coming from Brazil, to give up their home comforts to come out here. In terms of transfer fees, I think they're definitely paying a premium based upon what clubs expect Chinese teams to be able to pay.
Right.
And also you've got a number of people in the middle maybe also needing their payments out of these transfer fees because the Chinese maybe don't have the direct contacts themselves. But that's something that will come in time, and I'm sure these fees will get more realistic in 5, 10 years time. But for the moment, they understand they have to pay a premium, and in many cases they're not even worried about paying a premium. They just want to get the guy they want, and it doesn't particularly matter how much they've got to pay.
Well, when you have that amount of money, it's less imperative to get a good deal. But I'm no economist, Christopher, but my understanding of how economics work is if somebody comes in and starts throwing out around a lot of money, that's going to change the market for everybody else, regardless of who's doing the buying and the selling. Is there going to be a knock-on effect of Chinese teams coming in and dropping $50 million on Jackson Martinez?
I think so. I mean, there's already a premium that's been brought about by previous high expenditure from China and also from the Middle East. But what you're seeing now is, for example, I was speaking to the general manager of a Japanese club only yesterday, who was telling me how difficult a market it is for them now because they can't find players at an affordable price of sufficient quality because China has altered the market for East Asia. And that's going to be an issue for other markets in the area to deal with because they don't have the same spending power. And also for the clubs in China who don't have necessarily huge finances because everyone else will expect them to pay that premium now the big boys are, if you like. But I think between China and the Premier League in England, you're seeing rapidly increasing transfer fees on a regular basis. And there's other leagues around Europe who maybe aren't going to be able to keep pace with that.
If you want an assessment of Jackson Martinez's move to Guangzhou, Evergrande, and Christopher's take on the rest of this market, you can find a piece at ESPN FC that he just posted to his Twitter account, which is Chris Atkins _. So, Christopher, we have this changing market now because there's a new player on the scene, and as you said, the Middle Eastern clubs have occasionally dipped their toes into these waters, but certainly not on this kind of scale. Is this just a big one big wave that will subside and become less there'll be less spending and less players moving, or is this going to be how things are now when it comes to the Chinese Super League?
I think that's the $1 million question or $42 million question. Yeah. It's I work here, as you say, I work in the industry here, and nobody's sure. I mean, what we're seeing from Evergrande is indications of a long-term commitment to football with the academy structure they put in place, and also their purchasing of young players. But there's other clubs who are spending a lot of money. We're not seeing that same long-term commitment from yet. But I mean, it's going to be difficult to tell. Obviously, that what's going to influence that greatly is how strong these companies are doing financially in the coming years. This level of spending isn't sustainable as an enterprise because they're not bringing in the income. These clubs don't bring in great income, so they've got limits, I'm sure, on how much they can spend. And at the moment, it's profitable in other ways in terms of marketing their brand or maybe political connections to spend this money. But there's going to be limits to that expenditure.
And that leads us to maybe the larger question of football infrastructure within China. Before or as some of these transfers were coming, hitting the news wire, Christopher, I was talking on the show about this reported involvement of Chinese companies in the Portuguese second division in an attempt, I suppose, not only to spread their brand, whatever that may be, but also find a place for some Chinese players to go and learn their craft. We know that there are now residential academies being promoted by the government, being run by the government. How is Chinese football coming along? Because you can buy all the Brazilians in the world. That doesn't mean that you're going to become a footballing nation.
No, it was a point that's been raised continually in the last few days in terms of the Chinese Super League to become comparable with the top leagues around the world needs to have top Chinese talent. And that's going to take, I don't know, 15, 20 years minimum to develop, because at the moment it's not coming through. Even the under 16 level, under 14 level results aren't that strong at the moment. So that's something that they're aware of. Whether they can fix that easily enough is another issue. I mean, there's plenty of obstacles that need to be overcome in that respect in terms of the grassroots training of the young players, and also the footballing culture in the country needs to be developed. If you're not having kids or adults going out and playing on a regular basis, you're never going to develop top level talent. So that's something that they're aware of and they are trying to work on, but it takes a long time. Regarding the sponsoring of the Portuguese league, I mean, they've backtracked on the need for each club to take a Chinese player, which is good because that was a ridiculous condition. But I mean, it's all part of the expanding the sports industry by investing overseas. And you've seen it recently with City Football Group, and also Jorge Mendez's Gestefood agency has also had Chinese investment only recently.
The cultural elements of the game are going to be the part that I'm most fascinated by, because it's something that we deal with here in the United States. Whether or not soccer or football is culturally important is going to say a lot about how good the soccer is here, and certainly how good the national team is. Obviously, in terms of numbers, there's no. It's not an issue if more Chinese players or more Chinese kids are pushed towards the game. What is it about, though, and I don't know that you're an expert on this necessarily, Christopher, but what is it about Chinese sports culture that allows them to, put some talented kids into a situation where they become the best divers in the world, but have a problem putting together 11 players to become a good football side?
I think, I've been in China since 2008 now, and this is probably the question I've been asked most over the years. China's generally very good at coaching anything that can be repetitively practiced. So you're talking, diving, gymnastics, even things like table tennis and badminton, where they're individual sports as well. But when it comes to team events, they haven't been quite so successful. They've had the same issues with basketball, which is very popular here. They haven't managed to kick on from the success of Yao Ming in the NBA. But I think it comes down to the cultural side of things. There's a lack of creativity in general. There's a fear of making mistakes. And that when that is put into a team sports environment, it's a big problem, because when you see the best, the most talented footballers in the world, I mean, from a young age, they've been used to taking risks, to showing off their talents, and that's never encouraged in China. And so that's something they're going to have to change in their mindsets if they want to develop if you say a Lionel Messi or something from within their own system. It's gonna require a complete change in attitude and coaching at those very, very youngest levels.
Does importing Brazilians to play in the Super League, does that at all help? I mean, certainly there's now examples, and I don't remember the numbers, but I know the Super League has scored a very large and lucrative television contract.
Yeah, I'd be skeptical of such deals, because I think they're largely inflated for the in terms of making a statement about how the league is growing. I don't think that is the genuine market value of the league at present. But in terms of how importing the players and how that will help improve the local players, they should improve from playing alongside such players. And you would think that seeing these Brazilian stars or even Jackson Martinez on a regular basis would inspire a young generation to go out and replicate their feats. But they have to be allowed that. I mean, there's a limited number of free spaces to play football. Normally pitches you have to pay for. That puts off a lot of people. Parents don't encourage their kids to go out and do sports because they consider it a bit dangerous, or they need to focus on their studies. And that's the real problem here. You have to get parents encouraging their kids to go out and play, because the best players are the ones who everything comes naturally to. They've learned the game themselves before later maybe having everything refined by a coach. You can't just start from the very bottom and coach from nothing. There has to be a basis there. And if you don't have kids going out and playing in parks, in the street, you'll never get that.
That's interesting. It certainly applies here as well. You know, the one of the knocks against the game in the United States, and obviously the United States is the sporting culture is very different than China. I'm not going to say it's similar, but they're similar in the way that you know, convincing people that soccer should be or football should be part of the experience is difficult. And one of the knocks, of course, is access. As you just identified, there's an access issue in China. Is the game, you know, from what I've read, it seems as though this is a game that's being catered towards some people with money in China, where traditionally the best footballing countries in the world, Christopher, and you know this, it's the blue collar, it's the working class that ultimately provides the foundation. Is it too far backwards for China to fix that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head with another big issue there in terms of a lot of the kids who are attending these academies are the ones who can afford to pay the fees they're charging. And obviously, if your parents, say, both work in factories or work in government jobs in terms of maybe cleaning the roads or those kind of basic menial jobs, you're not going to spend what little money you do have on a sport. So that's a cultural thing that they're going to have to get past. As you say, most or nearly every nation who produces a lot of footballing talent, the majority comes from generally poorer backgrounds. I mean, there are exceptions to that, but it's generally the case. In China, most people who can afford to play football are middle class because, as I point out, you have to pay for the pitches, etc. So that's something that is going to be different in their development here, and perhaps something they need to look at. How can we encourage people from all sections of society to get involved in the sport? Because perhaps for those who are middle class, their parents have different ambitions in terms of maybe furthering their studies, etc. Whereas for those from poorer backgrounds, sport is a way out of their situation, and that's something China can look to embrace, perhaps.
How does that impact the Super League as an entertainment product? Just the class divides in people who are actually interested in the game.
I mean, the tickets are very cheap in China in terms of the season tickets. You're probably talking for the top clubs even about $90 for a season ticket for the whole season. So that's pretty reasonable for most people here. The individual match tickets at, say, Evergrande can be about $15, even $20 a piece for an average league game. So they're a bit more expensive. But other clubs you can get for even like $1 or $2 depending on who it is. So it's accessible. The problem is getting time off work for most people. So it is generally a fairly middle class pursuit to go and actually watch the games live. It does also depend where in the stadium you are as well. Like many places, if the fan groups can be from a more humble background often, but it's I think it's all part of how China needs to develop this culture. You know, they need to get all sections of society, from the richest down to the poorest, involved in football, whether that be watching or playing, because you have to have that love for the game if you're going to bring through players en masse. You might get one or two talents, but if you want to really develop the national team, you need to have the whole country having at least a basic interest in the game.
One of the articles I read about the investment being made in Chinese football and the amount of money being spent on these players indicated that they expect to be the third highest attended league in the world, something like that. I'm not sure that it even matters where they rank, but certainly talking about cresting 22,000 per game, et cetera, et cetera. You've already indicated that maybe, you know, the television contract slightly inflated to make the league look better and the growth of the league look stronger. Are they getting the attendance numbers really indicate the popularity of the league?
I think so. I mean, initially, certainly with Evergrande, there was accusations that they were bringing in fans with free tickets and stuff like that. But I don't think there's necessarily a problem. Now they fill their stadium with 50,000 people for pretty much every game, and that's a great thing. And it's the same for Beijing Guan in Beijing, and also some of the other sites who have stronger attendance figures. There's more that can be done. They don't do a great deal in terms of going out into the local community and encouraging people to come and watch the game. And I think that's something that they really need to focus on, and getting more school kids involved in going to watch games on a regular basis. But I mean, they're talking about the league officials, reckon that the 25,000 average attendance is going to be broken this year, and that's a big step. They'll move past, I think, Italy and France in Europe if they can make those figures. So that shows that things are progressing at least.
And in terms of the actual quality of the football, where do things stand right now? How does this influx of new talent impact that? Certainly, you can't expect adding a raft of new players is just going to overnight make the league that much better.
I think it has to be remembered, of course, that you can only play 4 foreign players at any one time. There's only 5 in the squad. So you're talking every team needs to have 7 Chinese players on the pitch at any one time. And for the top teams, I mean, they have the best Chinese talent available. So the top 4 or 5 teams now are probably playing at as high a level as you get in Asian football. I mean, all the teams who will compete in the Asian Champions League this year will be expected to get to the knockout stage, and you would think Guangzhou would be one of probably the favorites for the title again, with maybe Shanghai SIPG also one of the favorites. So, I mean, Asian football isn't the strongest, but if they're consistently at that level, where only maybe a couple of sides from UAE, maybe one side from Japan can compete, that's got to be a good thing for China in terms of selling its football internationally. But we have 5, 6, and maybe even going forward 7, 8 teams who are playing at the highest level that Asia can offer at the moment.
I suppose there's no need for the Super League to be sold to people outside of China. I mean, obviously the Premier League is a worldwide brand, and you see La Liga is adjusting their kickoff times in many cases to try to appeal to Asian audiences. Christopher, with that incredible size of the Chinese market, do they even bother with trying to make themselves relevant in foreign markets?
I think for the moment the focus for Chinese clubs is on the domestic market. Obviously, as you say, they do have competition from the European leagues. European leagues are desperate to be the number one in China, and at the moment it's not particularly clear who is. I would say Spain is probably doing the best job, but Italy and the Premier League have a long-standing popularity here. And in recent years you've seen a large push in popularity for Bayern, but it's probably the top English clubs are most popular. You've always had that kind of Euro snobbishness about some fans in China who stay up late to watch the European games, but maybe won't watch the domestic league because they consider it not good enough. But those fans, I think, are starting to come around to the fact that the CSL is a decent product. If they like football, they can go watch it and enjoy it. So I think that's a good thing. I know you've had similar issues in MLS, but I would hope that also people are starting to realize that MLS is a brand worth watching in the years ahead.
Certainly room to be a fan of the biggest leagues and teams in the world, as well as going and watching live and local football, especially as the quality improves in numerous countries trying to start up, trying to get their leagues going here. Last thing here, Christopher, as I cough through this. You as you said, the multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar question is how long can this last? But I guess in sort of framing it slightly differently, how long do you imagine that these companies, these investors, are willing to operate in the red in order to get the league to whatever standard, whatever arbitrary standard is dictated by, say, government interest in the league growing? At what point do they sort of say, okay, that's enough for now, let's try to recoup some of this money that we're clearly losing?
It's very similar to the other question in
Okay.
terms of it's
Yeah.
hard to answer without knowing what's going on at the very top levels in terms of discussions. But I mean, if we take Guangzhou as the example, I mean they've led the way for China on everything. So I think most people will be trying to copy what they've done. Guangzhou this year have sold three players, two of which were squad players, and they've recouped 25 million euros from the domestic market in those sales. So they can offset that against, say, Jackson's addition. Jackson should be the only foreign player they bring in this year. They've also bought two young players from back from Europe at a fairly reasonable price. So their transfer outlay will probably uh, end up at around 25 million plus whatever increase in salary. But Guangzhou have also got a solid basis in terms of sponsors. I mean, the last 2 years they've been sponsored by Nissan's Chinese subsidiary. They also have a separate deal to the rest of the with Nike for merchandise and other products, whatever they need, and also their advertising. So they have a fairly decent advertising revenue. Each game you go to, there's the adverts being played on the big screen that they've separately signed from the league's deals with certain advertisers. So they're a fairly strong financial entity, and also the way it's allowed their brand to build. I mean, Evergrande have gone into so many different areas now off the back of their fame from football. So other companies are eyeing that and thinking, well, if we can achieve the same levels of fame that Evergrande have, maybe we can diversify our brand into other areas using that status that we're a reliable company. Whereas maybe at the moment, people who haven't heard of them are a bit suspicious if they were to go into as Evergrande have bottled water and cooking oil and film and also a music company. So Evergrande have really led the way, and I think that's what we're going to see more of.
How important is it? This is the last question, I swear, Christopher. How important is it, and how much of this is building towards the bid for 2026?
I think that's the ultimate goal. Whether 2026 will happen because Qatar has 2022 as it stands, so I don't think 2026 can be in Asia under FIFA's current rules. And then 2030, they're on about Argentina and Uruguay having a
Centennial.
centenary edition. So I think probably 2034 is looking like the one China will have to go for. But I mean, that's the thing. It might be in FIFA's interest to look into Qatar's bidding process and allow that 2026 to happen in China. I think there would certainly be some conspiracy theories in that respect if Qatar were to be stripped of the World Cup and then China given 2026. But that's the stated ambition of Xi Jinping, and I think as you've seen with the summer winter Olympics, it's going to be one of China's footballing goals. They want to show they're capable of staging these events.
Christopher Atkins, who is a player agent and also a writer based in Guangzhou, China. He's got a piece up at ESPN FC right now that talks about Jackson Martinez's deal moving to Evergrande in the Chinese Super League. Chris, thank you very much for the time, and we'll see what happens in the 2016 Super League season. Should be a fascinating one.
Thank you very much, and I encourage you all to keep track of it.
There goes Christopher Atkins. Good stuff from him. We're going to transition to the Premier League and talk to our friend Luke Moore from the Football Ramble about the status of that Premier League title race. Leicester City leading the way. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning. Backheel.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning on a Wednesday. Ignore the World Soccer Talk thing. That's fine. It's whatever. We'll get it fixed. On the line with me now, Luke Moore from the world-famous Football Ramble joins us to talk Premier League, as he occasionally does. Hi, Luke. How are you?
Hello, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's talk about Leicester City Football Club, because my oh my, here they are again. Not only top of the table, but impressing, and Jamie Vardy scoring, and it's starting to get to the point now where people are really legitimately talking about what it would mean if they won this thing, Luke. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but we have to start believing at this point.
Yeah, I think we're due down to start talking about what could happen and what it would be like if it did happen. I think, there's not a flash in the pan, is it? I mean, they're 10 points ahead of fifth, and there's 14 games left now, something like that. So they're well over the halfway point, and they're still doing the business. So yeah, it's very exciting. It would be great for the league if it happened. And not only that, I think, we've got Spurs, who probably look like the second best team in the division at the moment. If they were to do the business as well, that would also be a huge change. So, exciting times, and clearly fantastic performance from Leicester last night against a transitional Liverpool side who are truly risible at the back at times. But nevertheless, they did their job well, and Vardy scored 2 great goals and 1 particularly exceptional goal. So it was great all round.
Is on the other side of this, of course, that's not. How do you frame up Liverpool right now? Because Klopp is getting some moments, he's creating some excitement, but we know that in terms of the players, he just doesn't have the necessary tools to go after anything legitimate here with Liverpool Football Club.
No, I think it's a learning curve for him for the rest of the season, really. I think Liverpool fans knew that once they changed the manager around, and they clearly at least partly did it because Klopp became available and they trust him, and they are excited to have him managing the club, and so they should. But I mean, they've got an imbalanced squad at the moment. They're not really sure what they're doing at the back. I was surprised to see him give Mignolet a new deal. I mean, clearly he wants to keep him on board if that's the case, or maybe they want to move on for a higher fee at some point. But he's not really a Klopp goalkeeper in my view. And so, yeah, like I say, the rest of the season is a bit of a free hit for him, and his real work will start in earnest when they report back for pre-season in the summer. I really genuinely don't see them having any more impact in the season apart from that now.
And if you look at, obviously you look at the table, they're in 8th right now. They're a good 11 points off of 4th place. If they don't make Champions League football, and I think it's very unlikely that they do, how much more difficult is it going to be for Klopp to build for next season?
Well, it will be more difficult, but fortunately for Liverpool, they're a club with such draw and such a history and such a tradition in the game, not just in the UK but worldwide, that they can attract players. They're one of the few teams who have a better chance of attracting a top quality player, even though they're not in the Champions League. They've also got a new stand opening, I think, for next season, which will take their capacity up even higher. So that's a plus point for them too. It will clearly be a drawback, but a club that size can do the business when it comes to attracting top quality players, where perhaps other teams who aren't in the Champions League can.
We obviously had a bunch of games yesterday, and I was just looking at some of the results. I was watching myself Liverpool and Leicester City, which was the game we were getting here on the main network. In terms of this point in the season, whether or not it's City, or if you believe in Spurs, or somehow you think Arsenal's going to. I mean, again, we're seeing something from Arsenal here that's got to be troubling for their fans, Luke.
Yeah, no, they've gone a few games without scoring now, haven't they? And to be fair to them, I mean, Fraser Forster was fantastic in the Southampton goal last night. He's one of the outstanding goalkeepers in the Premier League, and they've been greatly improved since they got him back from injury. I mean, he just injects so much confidence into that rear guard that their record with him must be so much better than it is without him. And I have no clue why Liverpool aren't going after him or going after Butland in the summer. They need a better goalkeeper. For them to give Mignolet a new contract was crazy in my view. But sticking on Arsenal, they're going for a sticky patch. They always do at some point in the season. And the reality is that there are other teams currently who are more consistent than them. and it's very hard to make an argument for them to push on. But then things do change. I mean, Arsenal are capable of going on these runs and really improving. So we never know. It's certainly very, very poised at the top of the table. I think it's difficult to see the top four being unsettled now. It is as it is at the moment, I think. But you never know, and you never know when Arsenal are going to go on a run, and they definitely have it in them to win a title, but it's been a long time since they've done so they might have even forgotten. So it's a tough one for United. They need to accept the season is what it is, I guess. But they need to make a move in the summer. The summer's going to be huge for them. And I don't mean just chucking a couple of £100 million on players. I mean getting a proper strategy in place with a long-term view with the manager, make up the shortfall they're starting to experience off the pitch as well. But they've had academy directors quitting on them because of unsettled members of staff there. They really are losing their way if they're not careful. This summer's going to be huge for them.
It's I don't know. It's fascinating to me that in light of Pep and the announcement that he's definitely going to City, now it's all about Manchester United's response to that. But coming to City and coming to Pep Guardiola taking over from Manuel Pellegrini next year, and Pellegrini now as a lame duck manager for the rest of the season, and obviously this is going to make things very interesting for Pep in Germany. What do you make? I mean, look, it was probably a poorly kept secret. I think a lot of us had drawn the conclusion it was probably going to be City in the end, but what do you make of the announcement being made publicly this way?
I think the only reason they can have done it is because they thought it was going to be leaked, or maybe someone important in the process, Pellegrini or Guardiola or whatever, insisted upon it, because it seems odd to announce it now. It must have been in danger of being leaked, and they needed to just get in there first, I suppose. All I can say really is that timings odd. I don't really have any contacts inside the club or inside Bayern Munich, so I don't know. But it was a poorly kept secret anyway, so maybe they just wanted to nip it in the bud and end months and months of speculation that would have been tedious to all of us, so I thank them for that.
Sure. I mean, and it gives us something to talk about. I mean, but what is it? How do you think Pellegrini's been extremely classy through this whole situation, as far as I can tell. What can he do now? I mean, and does he have? Do you think he's the type of manager that can keep control of this team, keep the reins fairly tight, considering that they're all going to be looking now to next year when Pep arrives? I mean, they certainly the players are going to want to play well so that Pep Guardiola has something to see and decide to keep them around. But there's got to be an awkward situation now in that dressing room.
Yeah, Joe Hart showed a bit of leadership last night on the TV over here, where he said that we're all behind him, we all like him, he's a great guy, we want to win, want to achieve things, and we're happy to do that under him, and so we're going to keep going, which is you'd expect. I mean, bar one or two, I'm thinking of someone like Yaya Toure, who's a bit of a problem area anyway. I mean, listen, Yaya Toure, through his agent, has piped up this week after Guardiola was announced saying, he doesn't want to stick around. The reason he's doing that is because Guardiola will kick him out as soon as he can.
Right.
He's not a Guardiola player. He's not going to flourish under Guardiola. He's not going to, to be frank, he's not going to want to do the work that Guardiola is going to expect. So that's just a preemptive strike from him. He's not really given Pellegrini his all anyway, so that's not surprising. But aside from one or two like that, I think overall they're all going to keep playing for him, and they're going to want to achieve. They're going to want to be in Guardiola's plans. They're going to want to win trophies because that's what they're like. They're ambitious professional athletes. I don't see it changing a huge amount. I don't think they will use it as an excuse if they fall short either. Okay. So I think it's probably going to be business as usual for them.
Looking at the transfers for this particular window, just give me your sense, Luke, before I let you go, about how this transfer window played out. Certainly, there was some movement at the bottom end of the table as teams look to try to improve their squads ahead of a push to get out of the to avoid relegation.
Yeah, Newcastle clearly was a standout there. They made a couple of moves and they strengthened in the right areas with some good quality players. And I think Andrew Townsend has shown he can play at Premier League level. He's a good fit for them. Shelby's a great move. That's worked out nicely so far, and I think it will continue to do so. And if Doumbia can sort his work permit issues out, he is a European experienced player with striker with international pedigree. So they've done the best amount of business. I mean, from what I can see, other than that, I look fairly quiet. A couple of clubs signed a couple of players I don't really know an awful lot about, so I need to go and bone up on them. But yeah, you're right in your assessment. I think it's been a team like Newcastle who's done the best business, and they needed to, because they desperately needed players. The way the club's been run recently has been hardly set up for them to be successful, and McLaren's clearly put his foot down. They've gone out there and signed players, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. They've given themselves a good chance now. We've just got to go and implement it.
It seems as though January is not the window that the top clubs. I mean, even a club like Manchester United, they brought in some players. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, even a club like Manchester United is sort of saying, well, we don't want to play the premiums that are required in January. If we stick with this squad, we can at least maybe challenge for a Champions League spot or whatever. And certainly Van Gaal's record has not been the greatest so far in the transfer market. But we do have a tilting of the market based on the amount of money, the television money for some of these smaller clubs, Luke. And I just got done talking to a gentleman who's in China, who's sitting there watching the Chinese Super League teams spend money like it's going out of style. And I wonder what you make of how the transfer market is being impacted by all of this new money.
Yeah, in the UK it's been big. I mean, look at a team like Stoke, signing players and giving out wages for players who, with respect to Stoke, could go elsewhere in Europe, bigger clubs elsewhere in Europe. But the money on offer it comes into play properly next season, but the money on offer is astonishing. And so it's not a great surprise to see teams, middling Premier League teams signing good quality players. I mean, the problem is that on a wider scale is things that Liverpool just announced this new stadium and this new stand, and they've announced new ticket prices, and they've increased the prices again. And in light of the amount of money coming in from TV deals, it's completely unnecessary. They're running a risk. It's a very short-term idea. It's very risky, and that's disappointing to see. But I mean, clearly the money awash in the Premier League outstrips all the other leagues in Europe. And the money coming in China is clearly money from a different sort. It's in a different way. So that's why they're being able to sign players like Ramirez and Jackson Martinez and stuff like that. But I mean, there wasn't a long time ago that the Premier League used to only attract older sort of aging stars for financial reasons. It takes a while for these leagues to grow. I'm sure China's got a lot to offer in general for people who like to go and experience different cultures and different things. So I mean, it's not right off China completely just because of that. I don't want to be snobbish about it. The same way I wouldn't want to be snobbish about MLS.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, clearly, just to sum up really quickly, there is a lot of money available in the Premier League to not only the big teams in the Champions League, but to middling Premier League teams too. Just being in the Premier League now is so big financially that the clubs there can attract players from all over the place that might have gone elsewhere had they not been so money motivated. So it was very interesting to see what will happen and how it will pan out.
Luke Moore from the world-famous Football Ramble, which you can get at thefootballramble.com and also on SiriusXM, which is SiriusXM FC Channel 85. There you go. Luke, thank you very much for your time and your insight, and I'm sure we'll be talking as the rest of the season unfolds. We'll see if the Foxes can finish this out and shock the world.
Pleasure. Thanks as always, Jason.
Luke.
Nice to speak to you.
Fantastic stuff from him. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday. It is Soccer Morning. It's on backheel.com, and we'll be right back.
Wide awake in the middle of the desert heat.
Welcome to Soccer Morning.
There you go. We're back on Soccer Morning on a Wednesday. Thank you very much to Christopher Atkins and Luke Moore for joining us here. Good chat about China. Good chat about England. Let's chat about whatever is on your mind. What other countries of the world can we explore today on a Wednesday? It's sort of like a kid's show, you know, when the teacher and the cartoon teacher gets the kids on the bus and they take the magical bus and they visit like all the countries of the world in one day. Like, I feel like we can do that here at Soccer Morning. We go to China, we take our magic bus, the magic Soccer Morning bus, and we go to China. And we learn about China and Chinese football. And then we get it back on the bus. Maybe have lunch. Should we have lunch in China? We'll probably have lunch in China. So we have lunch in China. Then we get back on the bus. And we go across the globe to England. And then we get off because you don't want to have lunch in England. Then you get off the bus in England. And you learn about English football. And then you get back on the bus and you go home. That's a hell of a day. Actually, no. You get back on the bus and then you wait for people to call in at 646-832-3909 to give us whatever they want to talk about. And it can be China. Or it could be MLS, because there's a couple of big stories there, including what I talked about with Antonio Nocerino and the MLS admonishment of Orlando City Soccer Club over their meddling in DC United's exclusive.
I just want to talk about the Pep Guardiola signing. Well, I don't want to say signing, but he's going to Manchester City come next season. It's interesting to see such a well-designed coach and successful coach like Guardiola come to England and Manchester City or all clubs. But I just have a question for you, two questions for you. One, do you feel like the club has treated Manuel Pellegrini wrong? Because you look at a manager like Manuel Pellegrini, he's been classy ever since he came to Manchester City. And two, is this a sign that maybe we'll see Manchester City just dominate the league completely, or is it going to be closer than it is maybe a la Spainish?
I think, let's go back to your first comment. It's interesting to see a coach like Pep Guardiola go to England. I'm not surprised, because at this point, the English Premier League is the most famous league in the world. It's the richest league in the world. It's one of the most competitive high-level leagues in the world, outside of Germany, below the Bayern Munich level. And what I think we're seeing here is that Pep Guardiola, you know, he succeeded in Spain, defeating the evil Real Madrid empire or whatever, you know, winning things with Barcelona. But Barcelona obviously has huge advantages in Spain that outstrip everybody but Barcelona. I think Pep wants to challenge himself. I think Pep wants to see if he can win in a more competitive environment than what he's been in Spain and Germany. I think he wants to go to the Champions League and win the Champions League with a team that's never tasted that success before. So I think that this is really about Pep challenging himself, which I completely respect. As for City's treatment of Pellegrini, I think it's shameful. I really do. I think it's shameful. I get you can't pass on Pep Guardiola if he's available and he wants to sign for you. But to have that guy with 4 months to go in the season, 3 months to go in the season, whatever it is, made into a lame duck manager, a guy who's done nothing but, he hasn't succeeded maybe on the level they've wanted yet, but he's done better than his predecessor. He's been resolute in his commitment to the team. He could have stepped aside. He could have said, "This is too much for me," and bounced. And he didn't, and I think it's kind of wrong what's happening with Pellegrini. And no, Pep Guardiola does not make City into a dominant team that rolls over everybody in the English Premier League. This is not going to happen. They can go out and spend as much money as they want. Pep can be the tactical genius that he is, and they can still run into numerous speed bumps along the way that's going to make it there may be a year or two where Pep takes City to a title and they roll and they're 10 points, 12 points, 15 points up with a month to go. But I don't think that is going to happen on a regular basis.
No, absolutely, and I agree with your comments about the treatment that Manchester City gave Pellegrini. I mean, you look at a manager, and let me ask you this though: do you think Pellegrini was better than Mancini in his time at Manchester City? Because they've won easily the same trophies.
Yeah, I know. I think Mancini always looked a little deer in headlights at City. Where Pellegrini is more just the elder statesman, sort of. He maybe that's not what City needs now. Which again, I understand why you sign up Pep Guardiola. They want somebody more, somebody younger, somebody more vibrant, somebody obviously who has won every single trophy that he's had a chance to win. So Pellegrini's done better than Mancini, but certainly Pep is an upgrade at this point.
Definitely. I mean, it would also be interesting to see Manchester United get Jose Mourinho, if that's even possible.
I hope that doesn't happen. And I look, I'm not a complete fanboy for Jose Mourinho, but I enjoy his antics probably more than a lot of people do these days. I think he is a poor fit for Manchester United on a bunch of different levels. And I'm no Manchester United fan, but I think that they have a legacy, they have a club character that Jose Mourinho just runs completely diametrically opposite to. And for them to sign him up is basically saying we are now like everybody else. And if you want to be like everybody else, fine, do it. Join the real world, I guess, is the way to look at it. But that's going to change who Manchester United is. They're not going to have the same sort of nostalgic cachet that they had before. And maybe there's no manager in the world who can help them get that back with Alex Ferguson now retired. But they should at least go through the motions of trying to find a manager who more appropriately fits their.
Jason, yeah, we'll leave England, we'll fly over to China, and then hopefully you let me go to the United States.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, sure, man. Hey, look, it's home. We're good. We're good.
I'm reading a lot of people talking about the Chinese league and how horrible it is and awful it is and everything like this. And I'm hoping people got to realize that if they start throwing money around, that the best players in the world are going to go there. And if their government is getting behind this with all the money that the government has, this league in 5 years could be the best league in the world. If they have the best players, they're the best league.
Yeah, maybe. We still identified with Christopher the fact that there's only, they have rules in place, and maybe they changed the rules, but right now you're only allowed to have 4 foreign players on your squad, and you're only allowed to play with 4 on the field at any given time. So you have to have 7 Chinese players on the field. They need a lot of much better Chinese talent in order to compete on that level. Bill, it's not going to happen in 5 years. Not with the way.
I'm sure.
Go ahead.
If they start to see that they're competing at all with the rest of the world, if their league is starting to move up, they'll just change the rules, of course.
Maybe, sure.
They'll make it that you can have 10 international players on the field. If they know they can start bringing in money instead of just keeping spending it, they'll do it.
I don't know about that, to be honest with you, because I really do think the Chinese goal is to turn China into a power, not just make their league a popular league. I think what they're trying to do is buy up some talent that they can then use to help push the league forward, and we'll see if that's successful. But the reason for the foreigner restrictions is to prop up soccer in China, and that's going to take a long time. Look, for all of the consternation and hand-wringing that MLS fans are doing over the Chinese spending spree, keep in mind, again, the number of players is limited that they can actually go and spend on. Yeah, they're getting some great talent, don't get me wrong. But how uneven are those teams going to be? Very much like MLS teams in a lot of ways. I mean, MLS teams tend to be seriously uneven in some cases because of the top-level talent and those starters who are making $65,000 or $100,000 a year. It's going to take time. It's just going to take time. And I don't think there's anything to worry about right now. And somebody's throwing at me that MLS has more competition coming, and he's sending me something from the Qatari Stars League, which I don't get that. How is that MLS competition? How is MLS competing with the Qatari League? For what? For aging players? Okay, fine. Then go develop young American players, and I won't worry about it.
I talk to that to people about that all the time with people. We're not even competing with England. We're not competing with anybody outside this country. We're competing with this country. We're competing with all the other sports we have in this country. We have to get more people watching this sport in our country for it to grow. We don't have to worry about the rest of the world.
No,
That's why even the Chinese league, like people saying that this is competition, but this isn't competition.
No, good for China.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah, I know people are coveting, all right? Like, they're coveting the Chinese spending. Fine. You want to do that? You want to throw at MLS ownership and MLS and the league as a whole that they should be spending £45 million on Jackson Martinez? I guess. I mean, I think that's completely ridiculous. But the thing about it is, I don't care. Look, good for China. Good for their fans. You know, if this happens to show up on my television one night, maybe I'll check it out. I mean, I have an interest in the A-League, and that, you know, a lot of people tell you the A-League is complete crap. That's fine. That doesn't. I can watch whatever as long as I understand what context it's taking place in. American soccer doesn't need to go spend $45 million on Jackson Martinez right now. I'm sorry, they don't.
No, and I love the way Americans, like Don Garber, I'm like, people talk about him and they hate some of the rules and everything. I love all the rules he has in place because I love that he's slowly moving this league along in the right way. And like I think may happen with China now is they may go crazy spending ridiculous amount of money on their league, and then 5 years from now it may fold.
Right. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't want to make any predictions about the bottom falling out of the Chinese league, but this is clearly lost leader type stuff. They are not spending money that they're making. This is not the Premier League where suddenly a bunch of teams at the bottom end of the table have television revenue coming in that they get to spend on player acquisitions. This is China saying, we want a shortcut. We want to hit the nitrous booster on our league. Okay, what do? Spend a bunch of money that we're not going to be making back in the next 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, not unless they start developing a lot of talent that they can then sell on to defray these costs. Not unless their ticket prices go up dramatically and suddenly they're selling out 50,000-seat stadiums at $45 a pop. That's not happening right now. So, again, I'm not judging the Chinese league. Good for them. Go do that. But this does not mean that MLS is failing, and it's certainly the notion that China or Qatar are competing with MLS is only true if you care that much about John Terry and where he plays. That's the only reason to care. All right, you got anything else, Bill?
I agree with you 100%. I just want to throw out there real quick. I just got my tickets for the Copa America, and I've sat with the supporters before in the past. And maybe I'm aging myself because maybe it was a lot longer ago than I thought, but the seats were always general admission. And I saw something on this when I went to buy my ticket that the seats, you must sit in your seat that you're assigned. And I was like, maybe they just have to write that in there because they have to give you a seat number. But now with our seats in the supporter section, there are 3 price ranges, which I've never seen before. And I wonder if any Outlaw members, if this has happened in the past. Front row seats in the supporter section is $225.
Whoa.
The next 10 rows are $95, and then all the sections behind that are $75. So you really do have to sit in the seat you're assigned because you can't go into a higher rated seat section.
Right. I see what you're saying. Because if you pay $225, you're not going to be cool if somebody's taking that seat because they got there first.
And that's without a doubt. And that goes. That's only the first row, but then you still have another 10 rows where they paid a higher amount. So you're not even getting into the first 10. I mean, it's going to be the last, 20 rows behind the first 11 rows are, I guess, would be general admission, which they're saying they're not. And I'm just curious if that's the first time this has happened with the supporters, and this is really becoming a money grab. And they're trying to get as much money out of this as possible.
Well, I've heard that the tickets for Copa America are pretty ridiculous right now, and I I really hope that these prices aren't being set by U.S. Soccer, but I'm sure U.S. Soccer has a hand in all of this, and it's starting to get ridiculous. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Bill. I mean, obviously, lots of people are going to want to go. I want to go, but I'll tell you right now, I can't justify that. I mean, if I get to go as media, then I'll go, but I can't justify buying tickets.
Oh, that's my thing now too. I'm like, this is at the group stages. It was $75 for my seat for the group stage. I can't imagine what the final at the Meadowlands is going to be. Mm-hmm. You know, if this is, it'd probably be $175, and I can't justify that myself.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate the call, Bill. There goes Bill up in New York. All right, I think that's a good place to end this edition. We've had all of those technical issues, but some very good guests today. Christopher Atkins from Guangzhou in China talking about the Chinese spending spree. Luke Moore from the Football Ramble talking about the state of the Premier League right now. Obviously, Pep Guardiola making that move to City in the summer. We'll see how that all plays out. Thank you to both of our callers, Roberto and Bill, the only two I was able to get in today. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully the tech is a little bit better, but I think that's going to wrap up this edition. What else? Trevor, anything else? We'll get those IDs fixed so it doesn't say the name of the website we're not attached to anymore. But yeah, I don't know. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.